Welcome, everyone, to another exciting, action-packed episode of the EmpowerMAN podcast. It's your boy, Mikey G, coming to you live from the free state of Florida. And joining me today is the man who rejected CNN's attempt to get him to moderate the big presidential debate that's going to happen tomorrow night because we're filming on a Wednesday. His shoulders are bigger than this country. He is my friend. He's my brother. He's your friend, your brother. He's America first. He's family first. He is the patriot, the parent. He is the champion of the Second Amendment. He's my boy. He's your boy. He's everybody's boy. He's a gift to this world. Greg A. Tedora, number one. Greggy T, how are you?
Doing good, Mike. What a day. What a day in the life of Greggy T. But anyway, glad to be here and glad to be on this earth another day.
Yeah, likewise. And I'm thankful for Lavazza coffee that's currently in my St. John's University, my alma mater's coffee mug.
I want to give a shout out. I went to Amanda's block party last week at Boundless Nutrition. It was awesome as always. She has a big summer bash. Had a lot of vendors there. They were all real cool and tried some samples, of course. Had like 50 different pre-workouts. And then I brought Farah with me, and she tried a lot of the aminos, and she was very brutally honest with the people, saying this one's not good, this one's good, this one sucks, this one's good. So she apparently likes aminos, so it's fine.
I wonder where she gets that from.
And she had a protein shake. She loved it.
She must have had some bowel movement, huh?
She was good, man. She loved it. So I want to give a shout out to Amanda. She did a great job, and store's rocking and rolling. So keep it up.
That's great. That's great. And
my brother was there. He said to say hi.
Oh,
and,
okay, cool.
He's doing great. So I'm happy to see that.
Cool. And we're big proponents of small business, and I hope everyone else is as well, especially in New York, because it's challenging considering the laws and the restrictions that they put on these businesses, and more importantly, just the taxes and the way they just tax people. And really stifling. Sorry for the camera here, but it's great for Amanda. Amanda, congrats. You keep up the good work, and continued blessings to your business and to your family. Well, before we begin, everyone listening around the world, click like and subscribe our YouTube and follow us on the Instagram. And soon, there's a rumor going around, soon we might be TikToking, possibly.
Who would have thought it?
I mean, with the debate going on tomorrow night, that's going to be an absolute joke. Why not join TikTok, right?
I'm going to the gym tomorrow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to drink more coffee tomorrow.
As you should.
As I should. And want to give a shout out to our policemen and women, our first responders, our EMTs, our firemen, our firefighter women. Thank you for all that you do for keeping our local municipalities safe and sound.
Absolutely. And thank you to all the military personnel here and overseas, their families making the ultimate sacrifice. Things are heating up around the world, so be careful, watch your back, and come home. And let's make this country safe.
I thought everything was fine. No?
You're right. Everything's fine. Nothing's happening.
So before we get into today's topic, for those that are watching, yes, the TV is on in the background because my cat likes to watch Law & Order, SVU. Right now, she's on season 5, episode 11. So she loves her Law & Order. She loves Chicago Fire, loves Chicago PD. That's our show. We watch Chicago PD together. And she really likes Blue Bloods. Those are her 4 shows. And she'll watch any sporting event.
Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods. She loves Blue Bloods. Yeah, I think her favorite is Danny Reagan there. That guy, Donnie Wahlberg's character. She loves him. He actually hits it out of the park with that accent, though.
He does. He does good. So I forgot to tell you, last week we were at the pool, and Ruby went off the diving board. 2 years old, off the diving board. She went like 6 times before we got yelled at and asked to leave because she's too young. But I wanted her to experience it. She absolutely loved it and did great. So I'm very happy and proud.
That's awesome.
And Farah's doing awesome. She's jumping off, swimming full lap, so it's all good.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Maybe we'll build a wrestling ring out in your backyard and we get her jumping off the top rope.
She would definitely do that.
Yeah, still a little too young for that because unfortunately, it's not as soft as the water.
Yeah.
But listen, there could be a future in it. I mean, there's a
We'll
lot
never
of stuff
know.
going on in that world, so you never know.
Yep.
But something I do know today, Greggy T, we're going to talk about this because it's been kind of spiraling in both of our worlds. It's about having common sense, or is it being tough? Like, for example, my camera, I don't know why it decides to
Doesn't
move,
have common sense.
doesn't have common sense, probably because it's made in another country. I'm going to say where. But there often tends to be a misconception between when you're being tough or when you're having common sense. People can look at you and be like, "Oh, Greg, you don't really have any feelings or emotions, or you're too tough, or you're not empathetic enough." Because that seems to
Mm.
be the theme over the last 3.5 years: empathy, right? I mean, mean tweets, right? But
Mm.
they'd rather have a guy who's like, not all there with someone else pulling the strings like a ventriloquist running our country than a guy who maybe sends out some tweets that aren't so tactful, but the world's big, the economy's good, we're booming, right? So I think over the last couple of years, we've faced this dilemma in our society: being tough versus having common sense. First, let's draw some lines here. What do you think the difference is between being tough and having common sense?
Having common sense will let you know when to be tough and when it's okay to be tough. Being tough is like a waste of time if it's not justified or warranted. There's certain times and situations to turn it on, but there's most of the time you leave it alone. And unfortunately, most people don't have common sense. A good friend of mine said, common sense isn't for common people, meaning most people just don't have it. You could be super book smart and you're an idiot in the real world. You have no idea what's going on. Can't find your way out of a paper bag, can't go down the street, you don't know what to do. And it's frustrating dealing with those people, especially when they're in positions of power, because you take them outside of their work or their job and they don't know what to do. And they just stall and freeze. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think having common sense is a kind of an intrinsic factor based upon the way you view the world, what you believe in, because
mhm,
there's always that like gut feeling. Most of our gut instincts are like, I feel it in my gut, like something's wrong. Or is it a
right.
gut? Is it a spirit talking to you? Is it a voice talking to you? But there's going to be some type of internal signal that's going to tell you if something is good, something is bad, something is, I don't know.
Mhm.
But again, you have those kind of facts to choose from. Like if you know it's not good, but you do it anyway, that's not going to really equate in having common sense.
Yeah.
Or if
And
you
you can't complain if you knew that. Like if you're trying to get somewhere and you know going down the street you're probably going to run into a problem or not so good people or an issue, don't go down the street, take a different route.
exactly.
That's common sense. Don't go down there, there's going to be an issue. Somebody tells you don't go down there, take a different route, and you still make the decision to go down there, then you made the decision to go down there, so it's your choice. So you better be capable or don't say anything when
Yeah,
something
I
happens.
agree. I agree. And I think that kind of coincides with being tough. Like making tough decisions is not easy, especially as a
Very
manager,
hard. Very
especially
hard.
as an owner. I'm sure our friend Amanda has to make some very tough decisions in her business.
Yeah.
You make tough decisions as a parent. I make tough decisions as, a business owner. So like
Yeah.
we're all faced with tough decisions every day, but somewhere along the line bleeds in common sense. Like if I know I'm not making any money, but then I'm going to go out and borrow 20 grand, I got to make sure that the money I'm going to make or try to generate is going to cover that.
100%.
And I've made mistakes like that in the past where I
Of
just
course.
said,
Me too.
"The F with
Yeah.
it, I'm going to just do it." And
Yeah.
here I am, in the position. But that's beside the fact. I think you got to be tough in this world, but I think there's a difference in being tough, like in a stern way, versus being tough in a like physical, like almost demeaning way. Like
Yeah.
being tough doesn't mean you go out and demean somebody. It means
Hmm.
you take a stand and you're affirmative in your beliefs
Yeah.
and what you want to do. Is that pretty
Yeah.
safe to say, Greg?
Absolutely. And you can equate it to the business world. When I took over a pretty successful office with a manager that was there a long time, I have to establish the tone right out of the gate, firm but fair. I'm not a pushover, I'm firm. However, I am fair. I'll always have your back if you follow the laws and the rules. But if you don't, we're gonna have a problem. And I remember one of the top agents did something not good to another agent in another firm, and they went to arbitration. Now, I always told my agents, I will always have your back if you do the right thing.
Mm.
She did not. I sat her in my office. I go, you give me all the facts right now. Like, I'm your attorney. Tell me what happened. She goes, well, I kind of did switch this. And I'm like, did you make her aware? She's like, no. I'm like, is there any paper trail with a timestamp of you doing that? She's like, no. I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you this. I'll sit next to you during arbitration, but you're going to lose this, and you're going to have to pay the fine, and you're going to have to pay the agent. And boy, I just let her spew hate and being upset and cursing at me. I'm like, okay, you done now? Did you learn your lesson? She's like, yeah, I won't do it again. And she had to pay a hefty price for that. But she knew I had her back. There's nothing I can do when you overstep the rules and boundaries. Then I can't help you. So,
Yeah. And I think people avoid tough situations. They try to
of course.
avoid. I think now they try to avoid conflict. I'm sure you can attest this in the corporate world. I've seen some leaders in the past. Obviously, back in the day, you could use colorful language. You can't. I don't think that apply these days.
It's
But
harder now.
but it got the point across,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes, like that term "tough love," it still applies to this day, and I think we need more tough love in this world. Not that you got to go out and curse someone out and call them names and be demeaning,
Yep.
but you gotta to show some fire. You gotta show some. You don't want to be so like so passive. Like leaders need to show fire, even in like your
I agree.
life. Like you got to show some fire. Like, hey, I'm going to make this decision, and that's that. But I think people nowadays they shy away from that because they're afraid of offending the other person, and like we can't get all hurt over things that might not go our way.
I agree. It's so spun the other way now. So when you take like trafficking and abduction and kidnapping and all that, they do it in broad daylight and they do it during normal hours because most people aren't going to do anything. But they have spotters in the crowd who you'll never see, and sometimes they're young teenage girls, and they look for weakness. So when there's a mom with kids or even a dad with kids and they're not paying attention, they're on their phone, they let the kids wander too far sometimes, easy target. That's to me not being tough. You need to be tough in that situation. They will not go after somebody they know will resist and be a problem. I'm walking with my girls just by body language, your assertiveness, how you walk, your situational awareness, everything. They are looking for these things and they're like, yeah, we're not going to mess with that family because they look like they're on point and they're very aware, they're close, and they're looking for those soft, easy targets, the moms that are on their phones or listening to music and they're in La La Land, their kids are wandering 100 yards away. You're done. You're the easy pickings right there.
Do you think it's a both men and women tend to have a challenge having these tough conversations or being tough, or you think it's one sided? Or is
No,
it both?
it's completely both. And I think back in the day, I think it might have been more men than women that were tough. And I think now it's definitely 50-50. Or I think even women now are more tough than the guys.
I believe that.
I see more girl fights than guy fights. And I see more girls taking a stand like Mama Bear or whatever than these guys that are just oblivious. And I don't want to use the wrong word, but it's like they're just weak. They're weak men and they just don't exude any manliness or toughness. And I'm not talking tough guyness, but there's no masculinity. There's no like power dynamic there.
Yeah, I think it might be a generational thing too. I think the last 3 years they've done a great job trying to demasculate or emasculate. I don't know what the proper word is. Demonetize. I don't know whatever you want to call it, but the society's done a great job in breaking down a man
Yeah.
and making us, and it's not all men, not
Not all
all
men.
cops are bad, not all
Nope.
doctors are bad, not all guys are bad, not all girls are bad,
You,
but
you know what was nice that
yeah,
you made me think of it when I was at Amanda's event.
yeah,
There was real men there. Everyone was in shape. There were some big dudes there. There were some not so big dudes, but in shape. It was nice to see. It was like going back in time for you and me. It was like guys that hit the gym hard, girls that hit the gym hard, like that community, like they're still out there. There's not many of them, but they're still out there. And it was very nice to see.
So I'm going to give a shout
Time
out.
warp, dude. Time warp.
You said that. So there's a bar in town here called the Turtle Tavern, and a shout out to the Turtle Tavern. It is like walking into a time warp. You walk in, panelings from like the 70s, ceilings from the 70s. It's all old. It's dark. It's like an old school bar, and they play all like 70s music, and it's awesome. Shout out to the Turtle Tavern. But that type of exposure to things almost makes you not want to leave the house and like create a bubble inside of your head to live in. And I'm guilty of that because I work from home and I do my routine. It's the same thing. So I'm kind of not that I'm living.
Mhm.
I'm not that I'm living in a bubble, but I'm kind of like I have my own little world that I
Insulated. You're insulated. Yeah.
But do you think that's a problem? Being too insulated or being insulated?
You're asking the wrong guy. You already know how I'm going to answer this. No, I don't think it's a problem at all. As long as you're comfortable with it. I love not being out there. I don't want to be in public if I don't have to. I don't want my business out there. I understand. You're very social. You always have been. And I'm not very social. And that's fine. That's what makes the world go around. So it's fine if you're fine with it. If you're not fine with it, then find a balance.
Yeah. I think when I was being social, it meant something. It's funny. Now, like you can be social, but it's different because everyone's on their phone, or it's a predetermined meetup or something like that. But where you hang out, it's like people our age, like they welcome that type of dialogue and that type of interaction.
Yeah.
You can just meet somebody randomly, and that doesn't really happen much anymore.
And all those meatheads that we'll call them meatheads because they were like that. They were all, you would look at them and people would judge real fast. Like, oh, look at this juice head. Look at this meat. They were nice guys. Hey, what's up, dude? How you doing? Like, and they're all bigger than the next guy. And you know how there's always like that competition, like guys sizing each other. Everyone was cool, man. I'd rather have that than skinny jean fest over here where if something went down, like nobody's protecting anybody. So.
I don't know what that's like to size guys up, man, because I'm not that. That's all.
They're all like, "What's up?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up, man?"
Yeah, what's up, man? All right.
Yeah.
Squat.
Can I get by here? Like, yeah, like that inflated lat syndrome, but I love that.
Exactly.
It's cool.
It's awesome. Cool.
Yeah,
it's awesome. And again, being tough, I think again connotates a certain type of masculinity. We joked about this. I joked about this with you or somebody else about like the Marlboro Man.
Yeah.
Or like guys back in the day, like John Wayne and other guys, I guess from a generation gone by where masculinity was looked at as I have to smoke a Marlboro, or I have to be a cowboy, or I have to be this. And for us, it was, how, being, muscular and strong kind of defined masculinity. And of course, then as you dive into different things, it was like, all right, who's the last man standing at the bar? And like, that's what defined masculinity.
It's a great combo.
It was a great guy. It was awesome for a while. So I mean, there's so many things that define masculinity. And now we're looking at masculinity. I think the definitions are blurred because and therein lies the reluctancy of making those tough decisions. But there's also a penalty people can pay if you can't make tough decisions.
You have to make tough decisions no matter where you are, how old you are in life. You're in high school, you're making tough decisions. You might not realize they're tough decisions, but they are. And there's major repercussions when you're young to when you're old. One bad decision can really fuck up your whole trajectory when you're a little kid, or even especially when you're an adult. You got more to lose.
Yeah, it's not about making the right choice because you're going to make mistakes, right?
Of course.
You may use common sense and it might not turn out the way you want it to, but you use the best judgment that you could, at the time. So I think it's not about being perfect. It's about making a decision that makes sense. Like, I am not going to fight 3 guys by myself. That would be stupid, right? That would be a lack of common sense. Or am I going to go to a restaurant and walk out on a bill, right? That lacks common sense. Like, why would I do that for? If I don't have enough money to eat here, why am I eating here in the first place? And those are gross exaggerations, but I think people will get the point.
Yeah.
common sense versus being tough. But you're often misconstrued and misunderstood as being tough.
Yeah.
But deep down inside, like, you're not tough. You make tough decisions because you have to. Fair
Mhm.
but firm. So how does that? I mean, does it ever bother you that people like can misconstrue you for something that you're actually not?
Yeah, it still bothers me. I mean, today it bothered me. I told you before, like what happened, but it's just all part of it. But it doesn't. It only bothers me for like a split second. I don't dwell on it because people have always done it, and they're gonna do it anyway. And everyone's like, "Oh, don't judge somebody." Everyone judges everybody, but it's like it's what you do with it. People are gonna judge by the hat I wear, by the shirt you wear, by the colors of your shirt, by what your logo looks like, whatever. Those people I don't want to do business with. I don't want to fuck with those people. I don't want to talk with those people. I don't want to be around those people. I want to be around people that are cool, like-minded, and that are just more chill and care about values and quality of life over substance and materialistic bullshit. I just want
Right.
real people. That's why our clique, which has been a clique for a very long time, and it's always stayed small. There's no
Yeah.
way you have 100 people in your crew that are solid. Sorry, ain't happening. I don't
Agreed.
care who you are.
Agreed. I agree with that. And I think, again, common sense, you talked about materialism and other things. I think, the things that we look at influence our internal locus of
Yeah.
what's common sense and what could be a tough decision. Like, we joke about using a firm or credit cards, but, like, how many times in my life have I acted on impulse and bought something, like joined a boat club that I have no business being in? But
Celtics
I,
tickets living in New
Celtic
York.
tickets, right? Right after I went out and got hammered the night before, I just threw down a brand new credit card and I bought $7,000 on Celtic season tickets before they got good. That's when they
I'll,
dumped in
I'll never
'07.
forget that call, man.
It was fun though.
I was like, what?
That's right. That was a lot
Like,
of
are you
fun.
moving? You're like, no, I'm just going to drive up there. I'm like, okay.
I did.
I know. I know you did.
Back when I
That
had
was that
energy,
was your thing, man.
I used to park my car outside of my apartment. So I would leave work at 12, get to Boston by 4. For those that don't know, Boston and New York's
Oh,
about a 4-hour drive, depending on when you leave. So I
great
used to leave
city,
it.
man. Love Boston. I love
But
Boston.
now it is a disaster. They have a
Sad, man.
mayor that, I mean, she's worse than Eric Adams. She's
That's
awful.
sad because that's a cool city.
Boston's a great town. We had a lot of fun in Boston. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But man, and it's the only city that I know of that actually sells Molson beer because I can't find Molson anywhere. I used to love drinking Molson
Hmm.
back when it was illegal. Molson Triple X. My friend Jerry used to go to Montreal visit friends, and he always come back with a case of Molson Triple X.
Another great city.
Yep, never
And
been to
I'm
Montreal.
not a fan of Canada, but Montreal is awesome.
Never been to Montreal. I would love to go
Good
to
place.
Montreal at some point, but never been. Never been. But
Hmm.
anyhow, Greggy T, there are a lot of, you said, judgment.
Hmm.
And do you think people feel like they're going to be judged about the decisions that they make,
All
whether
the
it's
time.
good or bad?
All the
So
time.
how do you overcome that? Like, how do you make a decision and not let the outside noise affect what you want to do?
It's your decision to make, and you have to remind yourself why. What are you making a decision on? Does it have anything to do with these outside people? And you should not make any decisions, in my opinion, in your own life based on what you think other people are going to say. They're going to say shit anyway. So you might as well make the best decision for you or your family or your friends and call it a day and stop listening to all the noise. There's going to be noise no matter what. So I rather do the thing that I want to do and deal with it.
Do you think the influences in this world, like we talked about, certain things, earlier on, but we talked also about, like, about um, what people are exposed to. Like, how do you think what people are exposed to, whether it's watching the news, watching sports, watching wrestling, watching this, how do you think what people are exposed to affect their decision making?
I mean, it affects a lot of the decision making, especially when people aren't independently strong minded and they need all these other people to make decisions for them. And they're basically just steered. Marketing just steers you to where they want you to go. How many stores you've been in that the checkout aisle is very long and there's all these impulse purchases along that aisle? because 95% of people will buy that shit, trinkets and stuff, on the way to the cash register. You didn't go to the store for any of that, but you're waiting in line. You got to meander through it. You start looking, oh, that's stupid, but I'm going to get that. It's the same thing with all these influencers or all these people, watch on TV or listen to, and they just take what they say for Bible and that's it. It's just different from when we were younger because there's so much of it now and it's everywhere. TV, social media, movies, music, you name it, streaming. It's just shoved down your throat 24/7. It was not like that when we were younger.
No.
And so we had to think more on our own and do more individual critical thinking. Not people are lazy now, so they'll just let people decide for them. So it's what we spoke about a couple episodes ago with your rights in a hospital. People just assume when you go to give birth, you don't have any rights. Meanwhile, you literally hold all the rights, but they don't tell you that.
No.
So they're just steering you into what they want to do, not what you want to do.
Right. And I think therein lies another thing that we discussed too when it comes to this topic is validation. Everyone wants to be validated. If I make a choice, I want something to validate me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If I decide, hey, I joined a boat club for myself, but because I have a passion for boating. I've always loved it ever since I can remember.
Always have.
Now you find out that, oh wow, like there are girls that like to go on boats. So now it's like, okay, so now it just kind of validates what I did because now I'm getting attention from the opposite sex. Unfortunately, fortunately for me, like that's not why I got a boat. I genuinely love being out there and being away from people and just being out there cruising on the coastal. But what are the dangers of what are the dangers of looking for validation when making a tough choice or utilizing common sense?
So people that don't have like a big following on social media, some people look at that as validation. I won't come on your podcast if you don't have X amount of people, or I won't talk to you if you have X amount of people. Meanwhile, they truly love your message. It affects them deeply and they listen to you all the time. So they'll equate numerically just likes to validation.
Right.
Somebody puts a post out, they don't get a lot of likes. They're going to be like not feeling validated and they're going to get down. They can go depression. They can go when they're young kids, like, bullied and suicide and all that shit. That's very extreme, but like that's all in the same container, all because you didn't get X amount of likes. And I don't understand that, but that's the world we live in now. All the young kids are validated by how many people you have, how many followers, how many whatever. And that's not really real world. That's just a part of certain things now. But people looking for validation, in my opinion, all the wrong places.
Right.
You look for validation in yourself first, period. I don't care about your family, your friends. You got to be cool with yourself first, then family, friends, partners, whatever.
I agree.
But most people are opposite of all that. They want the social proof and they want the optics of everything. Meanwhile, the substance itself is bullshit and fake and false and just hollow.
Sure. Well, look at this just for dating choices. A guy that wants to date like the, attractive but could be toxic woman because she's got a great body and she's hot, and it might validate him to have someone looking very attractive on his arm when they walk down the street or when they walk in public or whether they post a picture online. Or it could be the girl who dates the guy that has, some financial success and now is living a life that's easy. So you sacrifice your values for validation, and that's often at the expense of someone, which is not really fair to that person. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And I got caught up in it and going to college down where you live. Imagine being where you live in college.
No.
It's insane. It's not a college town. You're not putting on plaid and khaki pants. No, you're putting on real world outfits and you're around attractive older women and men that are hugely wealthy, and that's all you see. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you see all these attractive women and the guys with the cars and the boats and the houses and the parties. And it's like, that's what I wanted. Shopping in Bell Harbor, like no point there. Like going to all these places. And I'm completely different now. I'm got it all out of my system. It's great. But it's like now I can look back and like there's no substance there. There was none.
And
But
I think it's getting harder.
some people can't get out of that.
I agree. And do you think it's getting harder to decipher or getting that out of your system between that type of lifestyle and what you see on TV, like a lot of these reality shows? Like, do you think it's becoming harder or lines are getting more blurred into almost like norms, societal norms? You think it's hard to decipher what's real versus what's not?
Actually, no, because I think there's so much information out there now or access to certain things. If you did your homework and you did some research, you'll see that that person doesn't have that luxury life or doesn't own that car or that plane or whatever. And you can cross check all this stuff. It's not harder to decipher because that comes down to the individual. They got to
Right.
know what they really want out of life. Do you listen? There, I know people that want that stuff, and I don't hate on that at all.
Nope, me neither.
They're honest. They're like, I want that, and that's what they're geared toward, and that's all good. I'm cool with
Right.
that. But it's like I also know people that think they want that, but I know they really don't, and they're struggling with it. That's a personal thing.
Right.
So they need to dial themselves in and have a real, they have to find themselves. And I think finding yourself is getting harder nowadays with all the shit that's out there and the misinformation, the disinformation, and all the social media platforms. That's hard to do, I think.
Yeah, which is why we try to stay different because we don't really talk about stuff that's scandalous. It's about things that everyday people struggle with, especially guys. And we
Yeah.
put it out there.
All these podcasts like talking about, like porn girls and all this stuff like that. Like, how much can you listen to that? Granted, it gets millions of views and they make a lot of money. I'm not hating, but there's no substance there. It's and most of the people listening to this, you'll probably never even have a conversation with one of those people.
Right.
You don't know what to do when you're around them. Like we've been down that road. Like, yo, cool, great, but you don't know what you're doing, and you probably don't have a shot. So just keep it moving. Why don't you better yourself and better your life and try to make some sort of impact?
Right. Well, let's take this and put it in a situational context, right? You're a parent. Recall a time where, and I'm sure you do this every day, recall a time where you used common sense and you had to make a tough decision.
So I promised ice cream last week on a
Ice
certain
cream.
day.
Okay, ice cream.
It's a big currency, man, with little kids.
It's like
So I
crypto.
promised, treat at the end of the day. The day got away from us time wise. So it was way too close to them going to bed to having ice cream. Because there ain't no bedtime with ice cream because the sugar kicks in and it is absolute chaos. And then it
Right.
becomes the zoomies, like your cat, to temper tantrums and crying because they can't settle down and relax. So common sense says, just do it tomorrow. And the tough decision is looking at them, being like, sorry, guys, I know I said we can have it. We're going to have it tomorrow. And I'll deal with the tears and the upset because at least I know they'll calm down quickly and there's no sugar in their veins to keep them amped up. And then I'll just make good on the promise the next day and they're fine. But that was, that's not that tough, but it's common sense. Don't give it to them because you're going to pay the price big time.
And I'm sure all the parents out there can relate and have been in your shoes, Greg T. So that's a great example. Think about your career when you were, before you started your own business. At the time you had to make a tough decision while using common sense or letting common sense guide your tough decision, essentially.
I have a good one. I was only, I was less than a year managing the big office, making a lot of money for the company, growing the office, and they had the number 4 producer. When you're a producer in an office, you kind of have some weight. They also take advantage of that. That's a different topic, but they have egos. But there was one in particular, an absolute cancer to the office. I mean, bad. Where I come from, how I was taught, you got to cut that out quick because it's like mutiny on a ship and they talk and it just, now you have 10 people in the office and it's a problem. And so it was getting bad where they were not only talking shit in the office that I heard,
Right.
I was hearing from other agents that I'm friends with in other companies calling me saying, hey, heads up, so and so saying XYZ about your company, your office, and some of the agents.
Ooh.
That is, I have zero tolerance for that.
Yeah.
So, and she was with this company 30 years.
Mm.
I called her in my office and I said, you're on warning. Cut it out now. Oh, I don't know what you mean. No. This isn't a discussion. I don't want to hear anything else, whether here or outside. Like, you may not know this, but I know a lot of people in this town.
Right. Right.
I don't want to hear anything else. It didn't even last a couple days, and I heard it in the office.
Ah.
And I called her down, and I said, pack your shit. You have an hour to leave, or I will pack it for you, and I will leave it on the front lawn. You can't do this. I'm calling the owner. I'm like, here, call the owner. Use my cell phone. The owner backed me and fired her.
Wow.
And it sent like shockwaves through this town because everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe she got fired, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't out of malice. It was to protect the office and the other agents because they were shielding this bullshit every day. And they were even getting tired, like, Greg, she's got to stop. She's got to stop. That's real bad for, culture in an office. It spreads fast like a cancer. And when she left, the whole office, the vibe was clean. It was like a cleansing, dude. Everyone was happy. But it also sent the message, don't fuck around. Because you cross that line, you're out. And that's never been done before in that office. And I'm glad the owner took my back on it. I had everything documented, of course. But it was a common sense said she has to go. Numerically, it's a hard decision because that's a big hit to my bottom line in the office. She made a lot of money for the office. So now I have to make that up in other areas. And the owner's like, you're in the hole now because she was, I don't know, $30-40 million producer a year. So now my bottom line is 30 to 40 million less because I got rid of her.
Right.
I said, don't worry about it. I hired some new agents, trained them, and I made up that gap within a year and a half. Done. No problem.
Wow.
And she's doing great at the other company. So it was a win for her too. She just needed to be out. I'm not hating at all. She's doing great. It's probably a better fit for her. They'll deal with her shit. Fine. It was a win for everybody. And it's not personal. I'm like, this is not personal. This is pure business. I'm protecting the other 80 agents from you. So it's all good. But it was hard because it was a problem. She was going to sue all
Of course.
whatever. But it's all good.
Here's my last one for you before, things evolved for you in your life on a romantic level. A time where you were dating someone and you had to make the tough decision and use common sense to either stay in or get out of a situation. And what navigation tool did you use to make that decision?
Let's see. I'll use one. So I always dated older, and by older, it was usually a lot older. I think I was 20 or 21. I don't remember. But I started dating a woman in the gym, which don't do. It's like the number one rule. Everyone does it. And everything was cool. Like, it was great. And then, I was friends with her sister and her sister's husband. Like, we were boys. Like, it was great. But she was a lot older. And it got to, and I was very young, and I was like, I don't want kids or anything like that. Like, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to the point where I just hit the crossroads in the road, and I'm like, all right. And I did basic math, and I think my mom was upset with me about it because it was such a big gap. If I remember, we had like a discussion during like Thanksgiving. I went home for Thanksgiving or something, and my parents were like, what are you doing? But it just mathematically would not have been the right thing as I got older. Like we were at, like, you know how the roads are cool until it gets like this. And
Mm,
then as both of you get older, it does not work
yeah.
numerically. And everything was good, and we hit that crossroad and we kept going. And I was like, I'm gonna be 30, she'll be this. And I'm like, and then I'm gonna be 35, which is still young. And I just and that was a hard decision because she taught me a lot. She was super cool.
Right.
And I attest a lot of things that I still practice to this day because of her. Very grateful for the time we spent. I have nothing bad to say at all. Nothing. But yeah, that was hard.
Yeah, I think in the dating realm too, when there are certain things that are right in front of your face, using common sense to either ignore it or kind of use that information to guide that decision making process is something that people need to have. But some things, obviously when you're first meeting somebody, you want to give that person the benefit of the doubt. You don't want to be too hard or too tough on someone, but there are certain prerequisites now. I think as we get older, that you have to have coming in.
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. So if someone checks off all the boxes, great. You have that foundation. So a few things here, like, kind of, you kind of listen to your voice,
Mm.
maybe talk to your buddies about certain things. And, well, just, it's still new. You just give it some
Yeah.
time.
Time will
It'll
tell
work
all.
out. Time will tell all. And then
Mhm.
after a while, your gut tells you, like, wait a second, something's not right.
And your gut in this instance, I think, is your common sense saying, hey, wait a second. There might be some red flags. They're not really going away. They're surfacing more and more. You've given them the benefit of the doubt. Your gut slash common sense is like, are you sure you want to continue this?
Then that's the thing. What are you sacrificing by? I mean, if your gut's not, oh man, I'm going to throw the hammer down. Like, we're going full throttle with this, or this
Yeah.
is like, people that you talk to, and oh, she's the one, or how'd you know it was the one? Like, you hear stories about people because you and I
Yeah.
are both very romantic individuals, and you hear of people like, oh, when they first met, they knew, like, oh, I
Yeah.
knew this was
Mhm.
different, or this and that.
Mhm. Yeah.
I have experienced that once in my life, and of course, I put a napalm bomb to that and blew that thing up. But because I didn't use common sense, but I also didn't love myself either, so that's a different ballgame. But I think too, like you said, I think whether you have book smarts, whether you have religion, if your gut's telling you something, you got to listen to it. Because
I
if you
agree.
don't, the ramifications could be it take years for you to get out of. Right?
And you're
There's that.
wasting your time. And time is just, we don't have a guarantee of anything. You say it all the time. You never know.
You never
So
know.
why are you going to continue wasting time in something isn't the right fit for you? They might be the best person in the world. That's not what I'm saying. They could be, there's great people out there, but if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. If it's not what you truly want, then just move on. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
You'll live.
Yeah, and a lot of people are
The end of the
afraid
world.
of it's not. And you know what? Like it may not seem like it now, but the person did you a favor,
100%.
right?
And it's hard to see that. It is
It's
very
hard to
hard.
see that as you get
Yep.
older, it gets easier because
Yes.
you might miss, like, let's be honest, like you might miss the sex with someone
Mhm.
because the flesh is so appealing. But outside of that, there's not really much
Yeah.
that a person could possibly bring to the table that you might need. Now, some people that are governed by the flesh, that's it. They'll compromise themselves because they got, a very attractive partner, both male or
Yeah.
female.
And I never understood, whether it's a guy or girl, how they can cheat when you're like married with kids, or even when you can cheat, even if you're in a relationship,
Huh.
like a solid monogamous relationship. How can you cheat? You're going to risk, like, let's just say the relationship's going well, and you just gave in to temptation or whatever for what? A few minutes or a couple times. You're going to risk a great thing just for that. My brain cannot understand that. I don't get it.
I
Is it
thought, wow.
really worth
Yeah.
it? And if it is, just be single. It's all good. We know plenty of people. What are you doing? What are you doing? I don't get it, man.
It's lack of life experience, number one. I also think, two, people want
Hmm,
their cake and eat it too. I mean, how many times have we heard things, both
hmm.
men and women, kind of like blur the lines of reality to where they're making something that is so impactful, not so impactful. Like cheating on your partner, it's a big deal. And there are
Yeah,
people out there, both men and women, that we've spoken to that, yeah, it's. I mean,
like
we're getting
nothing.
a divorce. It's over. It's a loveless. So then, why are you in it?
Man,
Common
why?
sense says get out of it. Like
Or if
why?
you're dating somebody, like just be single. It's that easy. Just be single and date. All good.
And we know people that play the role, pretend that they're out there,
Of course.
and and it's like, but again, I think it's a fantasy world that people live in, but it's a dangerous one, regardless of whether you have common sense or not, whether it's make tough decisions or not. People insulate themselves and
Yeah.
they pretend that there's a certain reality that they live in. Having common sense, you have to decipher what's real and what's not.
Hmm.
Because if you don't, then you're going to set yourself back a long time. And that's how I'm going to end my part. Greg, final thoughts as we wrap this up.
Common sense isn't for common people. I've heard that. God, it was probably 30 years ago, and it's so true. Just listen to your gut and just make good decisions. And if it's a wrong decision, like Mike said, it's fine. It's just a mistake. Just don't do it again. You learn from it. But don't let it cost you family, friends, relationships. Is it really worth it? And there's a time to be tough and there's a time not to be tough. So make the choice, the right one, when to be. It's like, it's what is it, Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze? There's a be nice until it's not time to be nice. It's the same thing. It's all good. It's all good. I'm smiling. I'm smiling. Next thing I know, I'm ripping your face off. It's fine
Right.
because you push to that point. Just be nice, have common sense, make good choices, and stop making choices for other people or what you think other people might think of you. Don't worry about being judged. You're going to be judged anyway. So you might as well just do your thing that makes you happy. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a great way to wrap it up there, Greggy T.
Yeah.
Again, this is a tough topic to talk about, but I think,
Yeah.
making tough decisions in this world has been a more of a challenge. You see people shying away from it, passing the buck, deflecting blame instead of taking accountability and
Yeah.
responsibility. And I'll say this, I think before 2020, taking accountability and responsibility was admirable. Now it's his person's fault, that person's fault, this person's fault, that person's fault. And I wonder where that comes from.
It's a society we live in now because it's acceptable to pass the buck.
It is. It is. Well, Greggy T, great stuff here.
Hmm.
If people want to find you on social media, Greggy T, and they want to inquire about your services for some one-on-one coaching, especially those in the real estate world, where can they find you, sir?
Foreverprogress.com or Forever Progress on Instagram. Hit me up. That's where everyone's messaging me. It's all good. Love helping real estate agents. I love it. I'm helping a bunch in other states, Arizona, Florida, California. It's all good because that whole landscape is changing. And I think that's a good thing. It's been archaic for so long. You need to shake the bag up, but you have to be able to survive that shake, come out the other side. So, and real quick, all these lawsuits coming out there's two big guys in Manhattan. Um, they're brothers, twins, and they were powerhouses for Douglas Elliman. And then they started their own company a couple of years ago. They're in New York, Miami, the Hamptons. They were big partiers, which that's fine. I'm not saying you can't do that, but you got to be careful. And alleged like rape allegations, all this stuff came out within one day. So overnight, like 30 to 40 girls came through because they smell a payday now. The guys are going to go through it now. And I'm not saying they did it. I'm not saying they didn't do it. But in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. They threw these guys to the wolves right away. I'm not saying they're not guilty. I'm not saying they are guilty. But you're innocent until proven guilty. And I don't like the fact that all these people just jump on the bandwagon right away with no proof. So it's the same. We see it in all the industries, in your industry as well. It's just these people can't get out of your own way. They can't get out of their own way. Super successful, and you just got to mess it up. Whether they did it or didn't, their lives are forever changed. Their company's probably, I don't know if it's going to go under, but you think people are going to want to work with you? Nope. So, interesting.
Yeah.
One bad decision. It's all the same thing. Common sense. You're partying in Ibiza, doing shit. People have phones nowadays. People are recording. People are videoing. You better watch your shit, especially if you're a CEO or somebody that's in a power position with money, because there are straight predators out there. And we actually know a few. So, anyway, be careful.
Watch you don't shake the bag too much. That's what I'm taking away.
There you go.
So,
Be safe, everybody. And thanks
God
for listening.
bless. Have a great week.
All right, later.